Oh, right. There was one last thing that I was going to look at. It was Noam Chomsky downplaying the atrocities. I've never actually read this. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's quite long, and I don't know if my interest extends to this point. Chomsky's defense of Khmer Rouge. Here we go. Cambodian genocide denial, of which he's featured heavily. 52 chums in the article. Interesting. In June 77, Noam Chomsky and Edward S. Herman published an article in The Nation that contrast... Is that this? Yes, that's this. Distortions at Fourth Hand. That contrasts the views expressed in the books of John Baron and Anthony Paul, Francois Ponchard, and Gareth Porter, and Jill... We do not pretend to know where the truth lies amidst these sharply conflicting assessments. Rather, we again want to emphasize some crucial points. What filters through to the American public is a seriously distorted version of the evidence available, emphasizing alleged Khmer Rouge atrocities and downplaying or ignoring the crucial U.S. role, direct and indirect, in the torment that Cambodia suffered. Had both faint praise and criticism for Ponchad's book Cambodia Year Zero. They wrote the refugee stories of Khmer Rouge atrocities must be considered seriously but should be treated with great care and caution because refugees are frightened and defenseless at the mercy of alien forces. They naturally tend to report what they believe their interlocutors wish to hear. What? I mean, it depends where they end up going. I don't think that, like, Cambodian refugees entering into Vietnam would have to say they didn't like Pol Pot or get, like, killed by Vietnamese government officials or something. I understand the unreliability of witnesses, but I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch, depending on the country they went to. In the article, carefully documents the destructive impact. Chomsky also attacked testimonials from refugees regarding the massacres, calling into question the claims of hundreds of thousands killed. Chomsky does this on the basis of pointing to other first-hand accounts that show killings more in the hundreds or thousands. He does not deny the evidence of any executions outright. In Manufacturing Consent, 1988, hey, I've read that. Chomsky and Herman discussed the media reaction to their earlier writings on the Cambodian genocides. As we also noted from the first paragraph of our earlier review of this material, to which we will simply refer here for specifics, quote, there is no difficulty in documenting major atrocities and oppression, primarily from the reports of refugees, end quote. There is little doubt that, quote, the record of atrocities in Cambodia is substantial and often gruesome, end quote, and represents a fearful toll. When the facts are in, it may turn out that the more extreme condemnations were in fact correct, although if so, it will in no way alter the conclusions we have reached on the central question addressed here, how the available facts were selected, modified, or sometimes invented to create a certain image offered to the general population. Wow, this is like nothing speak. This is so vague it's infuriating, just make claims. Yeah, and the problem being that when it comes to like carefully calculated vagaries, Noam Chomsky is a genius and can do it very well. Like, there's no getting around the fact that he's a smart cookie, you know? Is Noam Chomsky just anti-USA? Like, bro, it's definitely a pretty heavy bias, yeah. Cambodia scholar Bruce Sharp criticized Chomsky and Herman's Nation article, as well as their subsequent work after the cataclysm, wrote that while Chomsky and Herman added disclaimers about knowing the truth of the matter, and about the nature of their claims in Indochina, they nevertheless expressed a set of views by their comments and their use of various sources. For example, Chomsky portrayed Porter and Hildebrand's book as, quote, a carefully documented study of the destructive American impact on Cambodia and the success of the Cambodian revolutionaries in overcoming it. Wait, what? America supported the Cambodian revolutionaries. We provided aid to the Khmer Rouge. We opposed them when they were fighting against our regime, but after they took power, we wanted to use them as a wedge against Vietnam, giving a very favorable views of their programs and policies based on a wide range of sources. Sharp, however, found that 33 out of 50 citations in one chapter of Porter and Hildebrand's book derived from the Khmer Rouge government and 6 from China, the Khmer Rouge's principal supporter. Okay, that's a pretty scathing rebuttal, then. Cambodia correspondent Nate Thayer said of Chomsky and Herman's Nation article that they, quote, denied the credibility of information leaking out of Cambodia of a bloodbath underway and viciously attacked the authors of reportage, suggesting many were suffering under the Khmer Rouge. Yes. Journalist Christopher Hitchens defended Chomsky and Herman. Wow, I didn't expect to see him here. Okay. Not really trusting him and his assessment. British Marxist academic Malcolm Caldwell, an associate of Chomsky, wrote extensively about Cambodia, including an article in The Guardian called The Cambodian Defense, denying reports of Khmer Rouge genocide, and was regarded as, quote, one of the staunchest defenders of the Pol Pot regime in the West. For Caldwell, who wrote the essay Cambodia, Rationale of a Rural Policy, really? He's actually going to defend the policy. Okay. The communist regime in Cambodia represented the, quote, promise of a better future for all. In his writings, Caldwell heavily cited information from Kampuchean Information Minister Hu Nim, perhaps not being aware that Hu Nim had himself been removed from the position and ordered by Pol Pot to be tortured and executed at Tuol Sleng prison. This ideology represents greatness for all. Read his death. Murder in Cambodia. One of the staunchest defenders of the Pol Pot regime frequently attempted to downplay reports of mass executions. In 1978, he visited Cambodia. He and 2 others were given a highly structured tour of the country. We traveled in a bubble. No one was allowed to speak to me freely. On the 22nd of December, Caldwell had a private audience with Pol Pot, the leader of Cambodia. After the meeting, he came back to the guest house in Phnom Penh, where the 3 were staying, in a mood described by Becker as euphoric. At about 11 p.m. that night, Becker was awakened by the sound of gunfire. She stepped out of her bedroom and saw a heavily armed Cambodian man who pointed a pistol at her. She ran back to her room and heard people moving and more gunshots. An hour later, the Cambodian came to her bedroom door and told her Caldwell was dead. She and Dudman went to his room. He had been shot in the chest, and the body of a Cambodian man was also in the room, possibly the same man who had pointed the pistol at Becker. Was this a bit? 3 days after Caldwell was killed, the Vietnamese invaded Cambodia and soon put an end to the Khmer Rouge government. Becker said Malcolm Caldwell's death was caused by the madness of the regime he openly admired. I guess that's a pretty fitting end? I don't know. Well, either way, fuck this guy. His legacy, the largest section, all of the shit he wrote, and the biggest section in his Wikipedia page is him being killed in the country he was defending from accusations of crimes against humanity. Oh yeah, then his death is right here. Anarcho-tardism strikes again. That's pretty true. Okay, so the only thing that Noam Chomsky really did, essentially, was downplay the authenticity of refugees' reports coming out of Cambodia. I expected that he would do more or defend it more extensively. These comments are still very bad. I did expect them to be worse. If this is all he wrote in it, and then he just continued to defend these statements moving forward, I expected worse. Also, he pinned all the blame in America. Well, to be fair, no, any assessment of what the Khmer Rouge did has to be, it has to be followed with an acknowledgement that to whatever extent America is responsible, which is heavily, China is infinitely more so. And if you can't grapple with that fact, then, you have no business speaking on it. Yeah, it wasn't outright genocide denial so much as reflexive hyper-skepticism of American media reporting on the actions of its enemies. Well, again, enemies, we did end up backing them by that time, so not really enemy, But also keep in mind that's what Holocaust deniers do, right? Most Holocaust deniers are smart enough to not go out there and just yell yeah, it's all made up. They're more well, let's take a look at this reporting, and you go through, and you do the whole rigmarole. So selective skepticism is often the tool employed by people engaging in apologia of foreign regimes. What are your opinions on Hitchens? I don't know. It's been so long since I've really engaged. He was an Islamophobe, wasn't he? I don't know.